Next aspect of the language learning tripod is attentiveness.
In my opinion, this is the most important of the three, and the reason being that I really can't think of a more valuable resource to yourself as a person than your own attention. Logical thinking, is nested within paying attention. That sort of expresses that attentiveness, your attention, is more important even than thinking, because suppose you're really smart and you think really well, but you're always in your own head, you're not paying attention to your surroundings. Your intelligence is kind of going to waste because you want it to go to be ready for the moment when you need it. And when it comes to language acquisition, there's so many opportunities to pay attention to something, whether it be the cultural weightlessness side of things, noticing something positive you like, noticing something negative, but then thinking about it in a more compassionate way. But there's so many aspects when you're learning Chinese that will apply to either the pronunciation, especially, and now we're in the pronunciation course, but characters, what somebody said, did they use some slang there? Did I notice something like a first tone or maybe a T or something like that with the tongue position? These types of things, you might go, well, I don't know anything, because everything seems like it's a blur at the beginning, right? But that doesn't mean there's nothing you can notice. You see what I'm saying? Like, even though it is all blur at the beginning, there's all these characters, all these new pronunciations, it seems like a lot. That doesn't mean there's nothing you can notice.
And of course, like this, it's really important that you're focusing on the nitty gritty. Like you're focusing on heavily on pronunciation. You're focusing on building up the basics, your foundation, your pronunciation, characters, words. And then from that, you'll be able to notice more and more as you keep doing what I guess you could call the grunt work, like focusing on Anki, vocab building, pronunciation drills, that sort of thing. I love this website called Anti-Moon or Anti-Moon or whatever. It's written by, I believe it's a Polish guy who's got like next to perfect English, better than mine by far. And and he's just like, one of his highly suggested techniques for reading, once you get to the level where you can read in Chinese, is called the pause and think method. So you're reading and you're taking in everything. And as soon as you see, again, let's spot the difference, right? As soon as you see something different from what you expect or something you haven't seen before, you just sit there and you think about it rather than rushing to your dictionary. It would be like another way of doing Anki. It will just be burned in your mind.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's a really cool way of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what's cool is that if you're also immersing yourself in this whole process, which is more of a subconscious effort. Obviously your attention, you're trying to notice things. It's a bit of a conscious effort to pay attention. But if you're also immersing yourself, that's the perfect ideal situation because you get exposed constantly. And then you can kind of like think of it like this. Sure, you don't have to be paying attention all the time. But in meditation, they say it's fine if you realize you got distracted. It's no big deal. As Andy from Headspace says, it's like a feather against the glass. You just go, oh, I got distracted. Just go back to paying attention to my breathing or paying attention to my Chinese study or whatever it is. And if you're immersing yourself, then you can, at any given moment during the day, go, okay, let me just listen to this for a moment. Do I notice anything? Do I notice any first tones or do I notice any tone pairs or anything like that? Perfectly fine to do. Just keep it on. Just keep it around. And that's sort of the mass exposure you want to look for.
Yeah, I like that idea of mass exposure. I mean, it works once you've got a foundation. Right?
Yeah,
you have to have something to be able to notice stuff. You have to comprehend anything that's going on. But you start immersing yourself, right, which we do every day. And it's like listening and reading, especially listening. And you start picking out stuff. Once you start doing that, you'll notice clicks happening. So like you'll, as long as you, like I say, you keep doing the grunt work, you keep focusing on your flashcards, you're building up vocabulary, characters, drilling pronunciation, focusing on that stuff. And when you're exposing yourself to real Chinese, you'll notice grammar structures or the way a word's used. It will be a click. And only when you're ready, only when you've had enough exposure, enough grunt work or whatever, foundation building, then you really start to click, and those clicks will get faster and faster and faster.
Absolutely. And I guess it's just like there's sort of this spot in between where it's like, don't think that you can't start noticing things pretty early. Sure, you have more foundation building to do, but as I say, there's lots of small things you can get to start to notice, even if it's not fluently understanding every sentence, but you at least can recognize, oh, look, there's that tongue position Luke talked about, and there's that, tone pair that was giving me some trouble or whatever.
One great way of noticing stuff, or a great way that you notice stuff, is by making mistakes. I think mistakes are a good thing in one context. So like in a few contexts. So when you're studying, like you're doing flashcards and you think one answer is one way, or you're reading a sentence or you're listening to a sentence and you think the writer or the speaker meant this, but actually you find out, oh no, I was wrong. They actually mean this. Those kinds of mistakes are good, right? Because that makes you notice more. And the next time you're very unlikely to make the same mistake again. Now, when it comes to speaking, like say speaking practice, I'm not a big fan, or neither of us are big fans of just shotgun effect. Just like, okay, I'm just gonna try and I've learned this word, but I don't know how it's used yet. I'm just gonna wing it, and I'm gonna try and use it this one way. Yeah. Unless you have someone that's also very good at noticing, that's a native speaker, or like willing to give you the time and effort to actually correct you. Like a paid teacher would be the best one. Unless you're in those sorts of situations, if you're just chatting away, don't try and just wing it with new words. That's what I say. Don't try and just be like, oh yeah, I've just learned this big list of 10 words. I'll go and try and use them. I respect the confidence, and I used to do that, but it gives you bad habits, like because you don't. But that's a situation where I don't think mistakes are that good when you actually don't try stuff out. But input, like when you're reading, listening, or when you're testing yourself with flashcards, mistakes are good. They're positive.
Yeah. And you could also think of it like this. So if you're speaking with somebody and you realize that something didn't work, they didn't understand you, then that's what you should take out of it is that didn't work. Stopping in the moment and trying to figure out exactly why it didn't work, well, there's a million ways you can make a mistake. Like there's infinite ways you can say something wrong. The main thing you want to say to yourself is that didn't work, so kind of drop that idea and then think about it later. Maybe when you're in more of a study mode and go, what was I trying to do at that point? I was trying to ask directions and I just couldn't quite get the driver to understand what I meant. That I needed to veer slightly left and then make a U-turn. Couldn't manage to express it. Well, when you go to study later, you can go focus on that, right? So the mistake just gives you a chance to go, what I did didn't work. So try something new.
Yeah, a lot of people can go in with a sense of, okay, well, this is how I learned it in the textbook. So this is, and they sort of blindly say it, or like from a phrase book or something. And you find out that people don't actually say that, or the area of China that you live in, they don't really speak like that.
Yeah, sure.
Or it's not natural. You want to notice that and then correct based on a native speaker, right? You don't want to just like blindly go in and say, this is now what the word that I use and the phrase that I use in this situation, no matter what, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. Do that. So another thing about this as well is when you feel like things aren't going in, this is going to happen a lot. You're like, okay, well, I've practiced this word, or I've practiced this phrase, or I keep trying to say this pronunciation and I think I got it down, but people keep telling me it's wrong. And, I don't know how long I've been trying to do it, and I still can't get it. This is natural, right?
Yeah. 100% going to be there. It's just one of those things. If you know that just think of an analogy of just life in general. If you know for sure that some days are going to be naturally good days, you're in a great mood all day, and then some days are going to be bad, and most days are going to fall in the middle somewhere, then when the bad day comes, you're just like, all right, I knew it was coming. And so when you're ready for this, you're ready that frustrated feeling of stuff isn't going in, it's going to be there. There's no need to worry about it because it's inevitably going to happen. And also, my experience, I don't know if you feel this way too, but almost always when I feel that way, it's actually I'm really close to a breakthrough. Yeah. I'm really close to actually feeling like I'm making progress. So it's maybe a couple days before, and then I'll feel really good about my Chinese. So yeah.
But as long as you notice where you're going wrong, then you know where to work on, right? So what I used to do is my mouth would open, and it still does this occasionally, right? It still does it. I'll open my mouth trying to say something, express a point. I was like, I don't know how to say this, right? And it comes out as gibberish, but I'll remember the feeling that I had or the thing that I wanted to express, and I'll go and ask my girlfriend, or I'll go and ask a friend. How do you say this? And then that will be burned in my mind, usually because it's mixed with embarrassment and feelings of inferiority as well. Sure. That always helps. And so don't worry about this stuff. It's gonna go in eventually. The law of averages is behind you.
Yeah. And another comment I would make about that regarding specifically pronunciation is that occasionally you go to say something and it's just like shooting and missing. It's not that you don't know how you probably should say this if you had time to think about it, but you go to speak and it just flubs out. This still happens to me from time to time. And whenever I do that, I just go, okay, think about that phrase that you've flubbed on. And then later, maybe not in front of the friend you're talking to, but later just take note of it and go, okay, slow it down. Slow it down and just try to say it again. say it again a little bit faster, say it a little bit faster, and then of course you'll get it down in no time.
And like the really extreme of this noticing thing is like taking it. Not everyone's going to be willing to do this, of course, but occasionally I suggest that everyone should record yourself. You know, because you can't always notice your own pronunciation. Like specifically for pronunciation, you can't always notice what your own. It's like not everyone has the ear.
It sounds different in your head than it does to other people.
And it's like my back now. It's hurting because I don't know. I know how to do the deadlift based on the video. But I can't actually do it in real life.
Sure.
I think I'm doing it great, and then I got my back is broken. So it's the same. So same thing for pronunciation. You should record yourself every now and then, especially with things you're a bit iffy on. And get an opinion from a native speaker. So
absolutely.
That's another thing, a way to help other people notice your mistakes if you can't.